Are you tired of being the middleman for every team issue? Sure, you might actually be a middle manager, but that doesn't mean you need to be in the middle of every interaction your team is having. And guess what? Great managers don't actually solve every problem their team is asking them to solve. Let me explain. In this video, I'll share how to build a culture where your team holds each other accountable so you can focus on leading and not refereeing. If you're new to the channel, my name is David Burkus, and I study high-performing teams and work with leaders to build their best team ever. If you're interested in growing as a leader and better navigating the changing work environment, then subscribe to the channel below, or even better, join our email newsletter community, link in the video description below. All right, let's get into it. If you're watching this video, then you've probably jumped in a time or two to referee disputes between two colleagues. But what if I told you that wasn't actually helping? And in fact, the best thing you could be doing as a leader is teaching the team to settle those disputes on their own and hold each other accountable on their own. Because you become the bottleneck and you teach your team that they can't handle any conflict on their own. Now, understand what I'm saying here. If your whole team is steering towards an iceberg, then yes, we want the captain at the wheel. But we're talking about the little day-to-day disputes. We're talking about Beth saying that John isn't pulling his weight. We're talking about Sally saying that Tim never shares anything in meetings and isn't giving her what she needs to do her work. We're just talking about little, minute things that don't require you, but every time you jump in, you train the team that they do in fact require you. And all the while, you're just sitting there thinking, when will my team learn to solve their own problems? Take a breath. I got you. Let me tell you a story. Roger Martin is a renowned leadership thinker and intellectual hero of mine, and he was the former dean at the School of Business at the University of Toronto. He's what built Rotman into a powerhouse business school. And early on in his tenure, he found that something interesting was happening among the faculty. He'd be sitting in his office and in would come a faculty member to complain about another faculty member. So-and-so isn't doing this and I need it. Or did you hear what so-and-so said about me? And at first, he was tempted to try and solve their problem, but eventually he decided to do something really smart. Anytime a faculty member would come into his office to complain about another faculty member, he would ring up his assistant and he would say, hey, inform so-and-so that we'll be on our way to talk about this issue with them directly. And almost immediately, the faculty member sitting there in office would say, oh, no, it's not that big of a deal. I can handle it. You see, the thing that Roger realized is that these employees weren't coming to him to solve their problems. They were just coming to him to vent. And he needed to send the message that I'm not here to vent. I'm here to solve the problems you can't solve on your own, but sometimes you need to solve them on your own. See, what I love about this story is that oftentimes just a little bit of friction is enough to shift the conversation. I mean, sometimes it's enough to get them to realize it's not actually a problem. In either case, you as the leader win because you pushed it off your plate and you've taught the team they can solve their own problems without you. Now, the tone here is really important. You're not coming in and threatening to escalate the situation. You almost want to be painfully nice. Like you're playfully scaring them into the realization that they're not going to get out of this confrontation just because they went to you. And so they might as well just have the confrontation on their own. On the rare occasion that Roger actually did have to bring these two parties together, he would facilitate a quick discussion, and then as soon as he sensed that the two parties were talking together without him, he would bow out gracefully. We'd say something like, it sounds like you two know what you need to do from here. You don't need me anymore. And in doing so, he would subtly remind them that he's not here to referee their conflicts. They need to work it out. So once you see two parties on your team starting to resolve the issue, get out of there immediately. Gracefully, but immediately. Overall, this approach does two really great things. The first is that it discourages people to vent and complain just for the sake of complaining, what I often call recreational complaining. It doesn't serve anyone. And the second is that it subtly reminds people that they're empowered to solve their own problems. In the story, Roger is not a referee, he's not a middleman, he's not even a mediator. He's a facilitator when needed, and he's not when he's not. Sometimes the most effective thing leaders can do is hand the problem back to the people. When you stop solving every little problem, you create space for people to grow and for you to lead and focus on more important things. I know, set clear expectations is almost a cliche. It's like saying, stay curious, but hear me out. This is actually important. When an employee comes to you with a complaint about another employee or some conflict, task-focused conflict here, not personal, not recreational complaining, not venting. Most of the time what's happening is that problem employee simply has a misunderstanding of how their work fits into the larger work of the team. You probably had this happen to you. You're waiting on a deliverable from somebody else on the team, and when you finally confront them about why it's late, they had no idea it was urgent or that you were expecting it. And the solution here is to get everybody together and throw a huddle. Now, in a huddle, everybody on the team gets together and has a chance to share what they've accomplished, what they're working on, what the potential roadblocks are, and even what they need from each other. A warning here, if it just sounds like we're getting together and we're all just reading our calendars to each other, then you might need to take an overly active role in facilitating in the beginning. But ultimately, you want to step back as a facilitator. This is a regular rhythm where the team has an opportunity to work out loud, to share what they're working on, to check it with what other people are working on, and make sure everything is going to fit together smoothly. It also gives the team an opportunity to talk about potential roadblocks and to talk about what resources, what information, what time they need from everybody else. Done well, holding huddles on a regular basis ensures that everybody knows what's expected of them and what to expect from everyone else. So you're not just sitting on the sidelines waiting for some deliverable. They know you need it, and you know you're gonna get it. Your role as a leader is to facilitate this meeting. Make sure that nobody is over-talking, oversharing, dominating the conversation. The idea is that everybody gets equal time to talk about what they're working on and what they need so that everybody gets their needs met, or at least gets their needs acknowledged and worked on in the future. That way you clear up this misalignment of expectations, and honestly, you're gonna see a lot of conflict just get resolved on its own in the huddle. At least until next week when we huddle again over new critical tasks to do. And that's ultimately what I love about huddles, is that the team is running the meeting and participating in the meeting. You are not the bottleneck. And over time, they stop seeing you as the facilitator for all their other disputes too. They know the next huddle is coming and they'll have an opportunity to work on it there. Now, if you're wondering how to make sure you get the best out of your people in the huddle, you're gonna wanna check out this video here on how to make sure that your people aren't holding back, how to make sure they're sharing what they're really thinking. Remember, the best teams don't just work together, they work things out together.